All right. Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Thursday, November 2nd of 2023, live at youtube.com/Paul Gallant and twitch.tv/Gallant Says. Also available wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Emo89 says there's a gnat on my nose. Hopefully I got it. Arsense asks, where's the stash? Got rid of it for a Halloween costume. Still haven't posted it yet because, like a dipshit, even though I spent a ton of money on this costume, which was the Batman from the Robert Pattinson one, you know, the one where he's a little bit emo, I did not get anyone to take a picture. So somehow I got to figure out how to get like the good first shot, because I'm a basic Metro and we got to have a stellar Instagram presence, don't we? We're going to talk about Dusty Baker in a moment, but before the room gets full, I think we can all admit, as human beings, we all make mistakes. But the funny thing is, saying we all make mistakes has become not quite undefeated, but it's a very effective excuse for when you fuck up. I don't know how many people saw this story that took place in Houston earlier in the week. It is definitely a sign of a larger trend where young people will do legitimately anything to get famous. Who am I to judge? I'm doing the same thing. I do love doing this, but I want to get famous and make money. But Alfred LaShawn Lewis is a 19-year-old who was charged with assault with bodily injury and aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon after two incidents that took place on October 26th at Wortham Park. What did he do? He attacked two separate men while another teen, 18-year-old Kingston Miker, filmed the attack on his phone. In one of the attacks, Lewis tried to rob the man of his cell phone at gunpoint and threatened to shoot him in the foot, according to prosecutors. When the victim refused, they say Lewis then punched and choked him. There's video of this online. In the other attack, prosecutors said Lewis is seen on video sucker punching a man in the back of the head. They said Lewis and Kingston then laughed before running away. So, Lewis, the guy who pulled the gun and the guy who made the punch, got an initial $10,000 bail bond that got raised to $30,000. It's another example of little shits being little shits. It's pretty sad that these are the means, the levels to which people will dive to try to get some sort of clout. But I just wonder how you can do something like that and not feel remotely guilty about it at all. And to think it's going to work, especially when you filmed it and other people filmed it as well. But I want to read this quote because the story's fucked up. What else is new? I want to read this quote. Said Alfred Lewis, "You know, I just made a mistake." And everybody makes mistakes. I mean, bravo. Everybody makes mistakes. This reminds me of some of the dipshits who would call into my show or text into my radio show whenever I said, if you do something violent as a football player or a basketball player, sure, you get a second chance at life. But get the fuck out of these leagues. You shouldn't get a second chance to play when you're going to allow something like that to make you lose your mind, whatever it was, to the point where you do something violent to somebody else. Like, you shouldn't have an opportunity to play a game for a living. That's a me thing. I know some people are going to comment, oh, Paul, the only person that could judge you is God or a judge and a jury. But we all know our legal system's rather. And on top of that, this guy's an asshole. Why can't we just call him an asshole? Oh, wait. Everybody makes mistakes. He admitted he did it to get likes on YouTube and TikTok. He continued by saying, I really didn't expect for it to go so left. You know? Damn. Well, I wonder what you did expect. Sucker punching a guy, pulling a gun on somebody else. Lewis said the video only highlights the bad part of his actions. It doesn't show what happens after. What people don't see is that I shook his hand after and gave the man a hug. Which one? The guy that you threatened with the gun? Or the guy that you threatened, that you sucker punched? But Lewis has advice. And yes, Half Nielsen, we're talking American legal jurisprudence tonight. Before you go out and do anything you feel is bad or that could look bad, make sure, said Lewis, people know. Or just don't do it at all. So basically he's saying tell somebody else so that they will make you stop doing it, or just don't do it. Don't do it for clout. Thank you. But hey, we all make mistakes. And it's a good excuse. I think I'm going to use this the next time I fuck up. We all make mistakes. So it's an effective shield. It's probably not as effective as bringing up your family for anything. Family's always a good excuse. Even if something with your family's not going on. Now, when you get into the specifics, that's where it gets dicey. You talk about your mental health, too. 2023, you're going to get away with that. You can make excuses for your dog, too. He's not violent, but he's a pit bull. That's also something that happened in Houston this week. There was a dog that escaped and attacked a kid and then attacked a bunch of people on a bus. But the owner said the dog wasn't vicious. Guess what kind of dog it was? It was a pit bull. Anyway, sorry to all the pity owners out there. So, I'm going to read a couple of comments before I talk about comments that Dusty Baker had on a recent episode of The Steam Room with Charles Barkley and Ernie Johnson. A couple of comments from you guys. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant, Twitch.tv/Gallant says. XX Anime X Dude. Dusty being sensitive is the reason why the roster was divided this year, especially with Chaz and Diaz. I don't know that it was definitively divided. And I guess based off of conversations that I had today, that Dusty Baker's had a track record in previous stops of being sensitive and not liking criticism. There's an idea that people in prominent positions should just suck it up and get over it, right? But it's not that easy. Try to put yourself in that person's shoes. It would be nice. You'd have a lot of money. You have a pretty good life. Family's set for life. But you still got to deal with this stuff. And when you're seeing it happen to you, criticism that was sometimes over the top, you are allowed to not like it and be pissed about it. And we so often ask people in prominent positions to bite their tongue, but we actually want them to be real and honest with us. And unlike a lot of people that are Astros fans, I have no problem with Dusty Baker saying that he was annoyed with the criticism he received this year in his retirement press conference, and then again on the Steam Room podcast with Charles Barkley and Ernie Johnson. Now, some were wondering if it was Chandler Rome that eventually drove him crazy, or maybe some sports radio hosts like maybe me. But by the way, I've been Team Dusty for a while, mainly because I just think there have been so many people that have been over the top critical of Dusty Baker. For decisions that were criticizable, that's for sure. But moves that ultimately were not the reason that the Astros season ended in Game 7 of the ALCS against the Texas Rangers. I guess you could make the argument that had Yainer Diaz played more during the regular season and played in the playoffs, that maybe he hits better in the playoffs, but would Kyle Tucker, with some of the other guys who struggled, and would the pitchers pitch better with Diaz behind the plate than they would with Maldonado? I suppose with how bad Javier's last start was and Fromber's start was earlier in the series, I suppose maybe Diaz would have been better. I don't think that playing Martin Maldonado over Yainer Diaz, though, is the reason that the Astros season came to a close. And when asked about one of the reasons he stepped away, he said, quote, "There was a whole bunch of criticism from 30-year-olds and bloggers and tweeters. I'm not doing this. I don't know that. And I told my wife I'm tired of this and tired of scrutiny." Can you blame him? The guy's in his mid-70s. And I've seen this pushback of people calling Dusty Baker soft. This guy was a fucking Marine from 68 to 74. He played baseball in the late 60s and early 70s in Atlanta, Georgia. Pretty interesting time to be a black man in the Southeast. He's been through shit before. You're allowed to be annoyed at stupid, trivial bullshit. Like people getting mad at your lineups on a nightly basis. And specifically the tone with which it's done. Rolling your eyes, fine. And you're allowed to criticize him. But I think that people got to a point this year because they were seeing it happen over and over again of exasperation. And sometimes that exasperation turned into comments that sounded hateful and over the line. And you never did that with A.J. Hinch. When A.J. Hinch had much worse moments, like Game 7 of the 2019 World Series or Game 4 of the 2015 Divisional Series against the Kansas City Royals. But Dusty's gotten a lot of flack, and I think that some of it's been over the line. Like, of course he would have won the World Series with that 2022 roster. It was too talented not to succeed. There has to be some skill involved, and I thought Dusty made some very good decisions throughout the postseason. Some have exaggerated, and it's hyperbole, and it's, just emotions, and said that he's the worst manager in baseball. That's fucking stupid. The worst manager in baseball? The worst. The absolute worst. You can't make that argument and have anyone believe you. And I know I'm speaking about a small group of Astros fans, but those Astros fans were really loud. Loud to the point that it got me to stop criticizing Dusty Baker for lineups. I remember we got till, I think, late June. Someone even showed me a clip of myself finally turning on Dusty for the Yainer Diaz not playing over Martin Maldonado stuff. But I was pretty fair and measured with how I framed it. And I said, this is the one thing that I feel like isn't good. At the same time, I kept saying it really doesn't matter what he does until the playoffs. And I know some people are going to bring up the things in the playoffs that they don't like. I truly can't find something in the playoffs that was so egregious. Someone was saying bringing JP France in the middle of Game 7. The game was fucking over as soon as Christian Javier fucked it all up. You were out of arms. It was going to be an absolute battle to win, and you needed to get more out of your bats, and you were only getting contributions from the top of the order. So with that in mind, you got to have somebody else doing something. And Dusty Baker making a couple of decisions or changes to the lineup, that wasn't going to get him back in. And I know some people pointed at John Singleton pinch hitting. That was a productive at bat. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Leclerc throws a lot of balls. You put him in there and you hope that he's going to be able to draw a walk. It was a good at bat, but he struck out. If it's not John Singleton striking out, if it's somebody else, we're probably not going to be as mad about it. But since it's John Singleton and, he shouldn't be in the majors, maybe he shouldn't be. And obviously the Astros had some depth issues at the end of the year. But he did draw the walk against Leclerc the last time he had faced him, despite not playing in the postseason. So I don't like that people are calling Dusty sensitive for this. I feel like he's allowed to be honest now that he's done. He bit his tongue for the entire year, and this is something that clearly bothered him. And it's his mistake going on the cesspool known as Twitter. I try to stay off of it because you just get into pointless arguments that carry on and on and on and on and on because somebody's not going to be willing to see things the same way as you. I generally, despite sounding like a stubborn asshole, I actually do have the ability to hear somebody else's side of a story and to maybe have it change mine. I'm not so dug into my heels. Maybe at a younger age I would have been, but I'm not so dug in now that I can't change my mind on something. Obviously, I learned the hard way that changing your mind on something can get you canceled, weirdly, when you change your opinion to the correct one. Chill, dog. But I am not somebody who is going to just dig in and say, like, hey, you're fucking wrong and everything you say is wrong. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be honest. Dusty Baker is just being honest here. And I think it's kind of bullshit to say, like, oh, well, he's sensitive. Wouldn't you be if you were dealing with this all year long? And what have you really done that's all that bad other than playing Martin Maldonado over Yainer Diaz all season long? Let's read some comments here. Bobs_4 at twitch.tv/Gallant says, Astros would have repeated with a better coach. Okay, Bruce Bochy, I guess. Maybe, though. And you didn't hire Bruce Bochy? How many coaches are better than Dusty? And someone's probably going to hyperbolize and say all of them. Really? Is that really the case? Imol89 says, I don't think Dusty being sensitive was a big problem, but I do think it contributed to some odd lineup decisions out of stubbornness to media criticism. I honestly don't think that's the reason he was making some of these calls. He has always been deferential to veterans. Always. Do you really think he was doing it out of spite or because he was being stubborn? I don't buy into that. I think he was doing what he thought was right, and he is an old school manager, and that's pretty fucking old school. Bob's Force says it was real loud on Twitter. Yeah, that's why he's like this. That's why he's saying these things. That's why he's actually sharing them here, too. And I'm not saying he's a martyr or like he's gone through hell or anything like that, but there were some tweets. One that popped up today. I was shocked. I had never seen that one before. But you will see a lot of Astros fans just lose their shit on Dusty Baker. And this doesn't just range from the nerdy analytical types to, it's not just them and the people that are focusing on it every day. There's other people too that are casuals about it that I feel like didn't even really know why they were mad at Dusty Baker. They just saw a bunch of other Astros fans mad at Dusty Baker and they decided to jump in. He didn't end this team's season. He didn't do it. I guess you could make the argument that he was a part of the reason that their season came to a close before a World Series title, but I'm not going to do that. There's no moment that I look at it and say, yeah, man, Dusty Baker fucked that one up. Half Nielsen says, R.I.P. Bobby Knight. He would have fit in perfectly in the Twitch chat. Word Deuce. Wait, what? What got you canceled? We'll save it for another episode. David Morgan. Total weak sauce. ... Is this for Dusty? How is it weak sauce to push back against people criticizing you? He didn't do it all year long. He waited until everything was done to finally do it. It's not like he was Bill O'Brien yelling at a fucking fan while going into the tunnels of NRG Stadium. And I did think at times people were on Dusty's ass in the way that they were on Bill O'Brien's ass. And O'Brien deserved a lot of criticism. A lot of it. XX Anime Dude, this is pretty funny. Moral of the story, this is teaching us how Donald Trump feels. I don't think Donald Trump cares, and I think he realizes that any barb is theoretically something that he can use to stay in the limelight a little bit longer. Because he'll come back. And I hate to admit it, but, I mean, sometimes he is funny. I know that's going to drive a lot of you guys crazy. I'm going to kind of miss the debates where he resorts to personal insults and just ignores the moderator. I suppose I should be mad about what this says about our country, but our country's been fucked for such a long time. I no longer care about the individual politicians. But anyway, hey, sports. Our sense says Dusty gave us a World Series, gave us a stellar Game 5 this year. I agree. David Morgan said he intentionally played an inferior lineup when clearly there was a clear and obvious path forward. I don't know. I'm still salty as heck that we lost. I don't know that Yainer Diaz would have certainly made things better for the Astros, though. I don't. I get the deference as far as the pitching with how much the pitching was underachieving this year to maybe say, I want to have the veteran guy behind home plate calling pitches for these guys. Everyone talks so highly about how sharp Martin Maldonado is. Do I believe it as much as the people in baseball who talk about it do? No, I don't believe it quite that much. I think a catcher's a catcher and a pitcher's a pitcher. But I think that just had a bit of a brain fart there. I feel like putting Yainer Diaz in that spot could have also not gone so well. He could have struggled in the way that he struggled when he finally got in there at the plate. Arsense says he is not funny. He's dangerous. They're all dangerous. And I know that's going to piss off people too. I'm not trying to say like Donald Trump's fine. No, I'm not saying that. I just think they all fucking suck. We'll talk about one in a little bit. I can't believe this fucking guy is still alive when it comes to his political career. Especially on the same day that Sam Bankman-Fried got all 7 charges, guilty, facing 100 years in jail. He gets got, but this other guy doesn't. I did have a couple of quick little Texans thoughts. So Sunday, I thought that CJ Stroud's spiel about the team needing to be more explosive was a little bit simplistic. He said this, quote, "We've got to be explosive like we want to be. We got to take some shots and make some plays down the field. We can't let them dictate to us. That's me getting more trust from the coaches. We have the talent to be explosive. We've shown if not top 5 offense, top 10 offense, we can do it. Got to call it and run it." Okay, top 5 offense, top 10 offense, no. Also, making plays down the field, stretching the field, it is this thing that gets pushed for a lot by football fans. And I think to say be more aggressive is acting like there's just 3 levers in football. You can press the aggressive lever, you can do the moderate lever, or you can do the conservative lever. But no, that's not how it works. I mean, there's a lot of setup in football. And there's also a lot of plays that are called at the line of scrimmage based off of what a quarterback reads from a defense, specifically in an offense that's from the Kyle Shanahan tree. So, yeah, you want to take more shots down the field. But can you do that when you're not running the football effectively? And can you do that when a defense has figured out that you love to throw the football over the middle of the field more than anywhere else? And now we're at a point where I think going into Sunday, now, like Bobby Slowick does have to have an adjustment finally. He should have had something coming out of the bye week to everything that defenses are doing against C.J. Stroud. They're just throwing a bunch of guys back in coverage and sitting there. Frankie Tutu has a fucking career day against Stroud and ends up getting Defensive Player of the Week in the NFC for it. But Slowick's got to make an adjustment. But I did think it was interesting to see Stroud after that comment on Sunday in a very political way pull up out of that I kind of took shots at my coach's nosedive. He said this, quote, "Bobby and D'Amico are the first people to stand up and say that." And I know that's the thing about this league. You can't let one game define who people think we are. Like, you all might have an idea, but we're the players. You know what I'm saying? They're the coaches. We're going to figure it out as the Texans. So I don't think it was really taken to heart from anybody. And they know how much I want this. And as a team, they know how bad we want to be successful. So this is an accountability-based business. And I think everybody's looking in the mirror like, how can we fix these issues and do things the right way? It's a good answer. It's a good answer to say, hey, we're on the same page. This is just something that I want to see more of. And they agree. But we all want to see explosive plays. And we all want to see football fields get stretched. It's just not that easy, though. It's not like in Madden where you can just fucking do it. If you want to do it successfully, throwing the football down the field, you do have to get defenses feeling very comfortable. And right now, defenses feel very comfortable just dropping a bunch of guys back in coverage. I also enjoyed this from Texans defensive coordinator Matt Burke. So Will Anderson is doing very well in a lot of advanced statistics, but he only has 1 sack to show for it. We're talking like pass rush win rate and speed off the ball and total pressures and stuff. And there's a video of defensive coordinator Matt Burke saying Will Anderson is setting up guys like Jonathan Grenard for some of the sacks he's making. And I saw Jeremy Branham, my coworker from ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, retweet this and say, yeah, it's a little disrespectful, just a little bit, to Jonathan Grenard. And I don't think he's entirely wrong. Jeremy's had this take that the Will Anderson praise is getting a little bit annoying considering there's just 1 sack. Okay, he might be a good player, but we don't need all these advanced statistics to basically excuse the fact that he only has 1 sack. And, of course, that blocked field goal thus far this year. And it's funny because Jonathan Grenard, I guess, saw Jeremy's retweet and retweeted it himself. So it's pretty interesting to see the back and forth between players and coaches that we have seen this week in the Texans locker room. I don't think it's the kind of distraction that's going to impact them Sunday against the Bucs, but yeah, a little bit of drama. We're like a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10. Let's read some more comments here. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Word deuce. Enough baseball, bro. What up with the Bucs? Well, I have a hard time buying into them with Baker Mayfield, but defensively they're good. And I don't know for sure that the offense is going to get back on track on Sunday. I think it needs to. I think that we should be expecting that. But then again, going into last weekend's game against the Panthers, I also said we can't expect this team to win any game. Joe Mama says, go Rangers, tip of the hat, Paul. I have to give you a tip of the hat. That's a tip of the hat. If you listen to my radio show today, I actually played the clip of me killing the Texas Rangers on September 7th. If anyone wants to alert freezing cold takes of it, I'm totally cool with the clout and the extra view. It's totally cool with it. Said, YouTube.com/Paul Gallant, even with the awful lineups, that's not the reason we lost. Our starting pitchers were ass. Simple as that. That's where I'm at. There are things to criticize Dusty Baker for, and he probably shouldn't be looking for that criticism either. None of us should. It's not healthy. I know that I have from time to time looked for criticism of me or people talking about me. And it usually takes me about 10 to 20 minutes to realize, like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Why are you searching your name on Google or Reddit? You know that by and large, the things that you see, you're probably not going to like. So what's the point of actually doing something like that? Steely Bob says, hope we don't hire Osmus. Honestly, I don't know that Osmus would be bad. A lot of people are saying, oh, that would be a disaster if you hire Brad Osmus. Maybe, maybe not. The manager does not have as much impact over this operation as a football coach does and as a basketball coach does. Samson asks, should we get Solar? Should we get Blake Snell? I am game for the Astros signing anybody. I said today that it's good that the Rangers won the World Series from this perspective. Owners across sports should see that spending big on a team can sometimes result in a championship. And we don't see it a lot of late. Football's got a salary cap, which makes it a little bit tricky. But specifically in baseball, the Rangers spent what? Like $500+ million over the last couple of off seasons? Maybe even more than that? And they were an 100-loss team 2 years ago. They bought their way out of the basement. That should be lauded. We need more ownership groups in sports to feel confident that if they spend a bunch of money to try and buy a championship, that it's possible. If they don't think it's possible, then they're going to tank for a season in the hopes they can get a great player. Or they're going to do just enough to be competitive, but never do more so that the team can actually have a true chance at winning. It allows owners to settle. So I actually think it was good from the Rangers' perspective. Excuse me, from the all of sports perspective that the Rangers won. And it sucks to see it as someone who follows the Astros and roots for the Astros. But from an Astros perspective, it actually might be good too, because if you're Jim Crane and you see a team invest a ton of money, leapfrog you in the playoffs after 2 years, and it's in the same division as you and it's in the same state as you, aren't you going to want to big dick him? You're probably going to want to put your credit card on top of his credit card and say, no, I'm paying. And pay a little bit more. So I hope that free agent moves are on the table. Hell, fuck it, Shohei Ohtani. Although, he's not going to be able to pitch, huh? All right, one last thing before we hit the road, because I'm starting to get a little bit gassed here. Sam Bankman-Fried is done. 4 hours in a courtroom that was not televised. There's some interesting pictures of Sam Bankman-Fried there. He was charged with 7 counts of wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering after his crypto exchange, FTX, and hedge fund, Alameda Research, collapsed. It's crazy how mainstream FTX was. And I'm glad I never got in on the Bitcoin craze. I'm glad I never got in on the NFTs or any of that other crazy shit that was getting peddled around during the pandemic. Very thankful for that. This should have been televised, but something like this going down as quickly as it did, I suppose it's maybe good to know that a guy who apparently paid a lot of money to Democratic causes, left-leaning causes, it's good to know that those people aren't going to bail him out when he's scamming people out of millions and billions of dollars. I think that they often, people in Congress and politicians often look the other way when it comes to stuff like this. It's a shame, but let's not act like they're all high and mighty, especially when someone like George Santos survived a vote to expel him from the House of Representatives. I guess I'm not surprised by this, because I really just think that every single politician has to bend over backwards to earn a smidgen of trust from you, because they love to do the bidding of the lobbyists that pay them. Left, right, it doesn't matter. And they're doing all sorts of weird twister kind of deals, tangling themselves up in one thing and another, and therefore tangling themselves up in something else that maybe makes them have to sacrifice their own morals and ethics. But I feel like both the left and the right should agree that Republican House of Representative member George Santos should be fucking gone. But he survived a vote yesterday to expel him from the House. 213 people were against expulsion, 179 were. And the reason that it seems people voted against ousting him had to do with, get this, I don't know, said recently elected Speaker Mike Johnson. Shit, is this like the third speaker that they've had? said that he needs to get his day in court. If they're going to expel someone who's charged with a crime or accused of wrongdoing, that's a problem. And that's true. Everyone does deserve their day in court. But what happens when, at the very least, you allegedly did all of these things? There's an article in the Intelligencer. It's called Every Single Lie Told by George Santos. Number one, he allegedly committed identity theft. But we all make mistakes. Two, he allegedly lied to collect unemployment benefits, collecting more than $24,000 in those. He illegally applied to receive unemployment benefits in June 2020 after the program was expanded to help people out of work due to the pandemic. At the time, he was employed as a regional director of a Florida-based investment firm, earning an annual salary of around $120,000. We're only on two. He allegedly lied to donors, then used their money to buy designer clothing. He allegedly lied to Congress. Well, that's normal. That's fine. Right? Everyone else lies. He lied about where he went to high school. His parents immigrated from Brazil, but he said he attended the Horace Mann School in the Bronx during his first years of high school, but had to leave the prestigious private academy because his parents fell on hard times, which was something, he would say, that would later become known as the Depression of 2008. He also claims that he went to college at some place called Baruch College. But a Baruch representative said that there was no record of him being in that class. His campaign bio said he works at Goldman Sachs, I don't know, and Citigroup. But representatives for both companies told the New York Times they had no record of his employment. Like, he just lied and lied and lied. But no one said anything about it. What else do we have here? He lied about founding an animal charity. He allegedly swindled a disabled veteran whose dog was dying. He may have ripped off an Amish dog breeder with a bad check. He was supposedly the first openly gay, non-incumbent Republican elected to Congress, with his campaign bio saying that he's married, his husband, and he and his 4 dogs live on Long Island. But his partner never showed up with him on the campaign trail. There's no marriage record. We're not done. In 2019, he did divorce a woman in Queens. I'm very much gay, he told the New York Post in December. I'm okay with my sexuality. People change. I'm one of those people who change. That marriage lasted from 2012 to 2019. In 2014, 5 years before his divorce from the woman, Santos sent Facebook invites to friends celebrating an engagement dinner with his boyfriend at the time. His former boyfriend said the party never happened because he did not say yes to the proposal while he was married. In July of 2021, he wrote that September 11 attacks claimed his mother's life. What? But he had also said on December 23rd, later that year, it was the 5th anniversary of his mother's passing. His mother, by the way, was in Brazil in September of 2001. In 2003, she applied for a visa to enter the United States. She had not been in the country since 1999. In May 2022, Santos said his grandparents survived the Holocaust. He's claimed his niece got kidnapped. He was asked if he is Jewish or Jewish. He didn't clarify. He may have been a drag queen in Brazil. He may have been on The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. He may have been a Broadway producer. He may have been a journalist in Brazil. I mean, this list just keeps going. He's claimed that he had an assassination attempt against him. Like, holy shit. It's amazing. And yet, they couldn't even get a majority to vote him out of the House of Representatives. And he's a joke. And here's why this is happening, in my honest opinion. If you're another Republican and there's a guy like this here, who's just a walking fucking headline and a walking distraction, it's pretty nice to have everybody looking at him and not at you. Because, let's be honest, it's probably a bit like the mafia in D.C. No? Is that a crazy idea? I don't know. That's just me. So, there's some people who are seeing this big fish who's made himself an easy target. They're just going to lay low and hope he gets picked up. Then there's probably some others who are like, I'm not going to snitch on him. I'm not going to bring him down. I don't want this to happen to me. We don't snitch in the mafia here. It feels like there's a lot of people that realize, oh, if I leave him in, I'm a Democrat. If I make sure he's still in as a Republican, the Republicans look worse. So I think I understand why they're not bringing him down, and this idea that it has something to do with him needing to get his day in court is crazy. This list isn't even done of things that he has supposedly lied about. If he's lied about all this shit, like, what are you doing even bothering with this anymore unless you want him to stick around because it distracts other people? And I think that's what it's all about. Our census says he claimed to be mugged in New York City, but no police record. Yeah, it's something else. Anyway, thank you for listening to this brief foray into politics. But George Santos, everybody makes mistakes. Sam Bankman-Fried, everybody makes mistakes. Some of the people who were criticizing Dusty Baker, especially the ones who went in way too hard. Maybe you can even admit that everybody, and by everybody I mean you, make mistakes. Anyway, that's going to wrap up today's episode. We got a radio show tomorrow, 10 to noon. I hope you tune into it. Appreciate you tuning into this. It's at youtube.com/Paul Gallant and twitch.tv/Gallant says live. We're going to work on a new schedule. I don't think I have the bandwidth to do this 5 days a week. I want to, but it's very hard to do it every single day and to try and do some of the other stuff that I'm trying to do on the side, or to just have a bit of a social life. But I do appreciate you guys joining me, especially with this show going up so late. We will have a show after the Texans and Buccaneers game on Sunday. Until then, so long, farewell, have yourselves a